Hello? Oh, great. Well, so we've talked about the history of pilgrimage, the folk revival, nature restoration through pilgrimage, witches, cunning folk, and herbal lore and sensory herbalism. Now this talk is beyond the ordinary. And it's very interesting that the last talk was all women on stage, and this talk is all men on stage. And one of them, the topics of the previous talk were grounding in the earth and plants and birth and childbirth. And now we're going to be talking about sort of spirit and cosmos and going beyond. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. But there may be a reason to that. There could be something in that. But
I'm honorary woman.
Honorary woman, okay. Satish is taking the
and maybe next life I will be a woman.
Yes, well, I think what probably you will see by the end of the talk is all of these men are very in connection with their feminine, and that is the way forward. Rupert, you've written about pilgrimage as a spiritual practice, and I remember after your science delusion book, going on a walk with you on the heath and saying, so what's next? You've done your big magnum opus on science and all the dogmas, and you said, well, I think for the last 50 years we've been trying to bring science into spirituality. Spirituality into science, and now we need to bring science into spirituality. And then you focused on these spiritual practices, and pilgrimage was one of them that you chose, and you became our first ever patron, and it's been a joy and a necessity almost for you to be part of this from the beginning. And on all of the different pilgrimages you've done, I'd love you to talk about moments where you felt I'm in the presence of spirit, or I've gone into this other dimension, this realm, you've gone beyond the ordinary, and why that this is important to pilgrimage, and why that's another dimension that needs to be talked about.
My own interest in pilgrimage really began when I was living in India. I spent 7 years living in India, and India's full of pilgrims. Wherever you go, you see people walking around as pilgrims on different pilgrimages in North India, in South India. Sadhus who are on the road don't stay more than 3 days in a place. Their life is a perpetual pilgrimage. So I was very impressed by that. And I worked in a scientific research institute, a crop research institute. I was in charge of one section of the institute. And my staff, many of them with MScs and PhDs, Indian staff, would come to me with their forms for leave, and very often they wanted to go on leave to go on a pilgrimage. They'd come back with their head shaved and with prasad from blessed food from the temple, which they shared with me and other people. So this was so much part of life. I got really interested in it. When I was living in an ashram in South India with Father B. Griffiths, a Christian Benedictine ashram in Tamil Nadu, I went on a local pilgrimage to a Hindu temple, a Shiva temple, on the top of a sacred hill. It was called Ayamalai. I went by bicycle because it was too far to walk, with some local Hindu friends and Indian friends from the village. And this, for me, was an enormously powerful experience. Going up, we had to take our shoes off, and then there were hundreds of steps up this very steep hill. The steps were really hot because it was a hot day, and so I kept having to sort of dart across bits to get to shady bits. And there were monkeys everywhere in the trees, so if you want, I tried to have a banana to revive me, and it was snatched away by a monkey. And you couldn't really mess with these monkeys because they were supposed to have rabies, so they got away with murder. Anyway, we got to the top, and then it went into this shrine at the top, and there was this puja, a Shiva puja. It just felt so powerful at such a holy place, at the top of a holy hill. This ancient ritual, the chanting in Sanskrit, the revelation of the lingam through the sacred light, jyoti, the light where they illuminate the darkness at the very center of a Hindu temple is in darkness. It's a cave. For me, this was an enormously powerful experience, and I realized the power of holy places. And when I came back to England after living in India, I realized that actually England's full of holy places too. And I rediscovered the holiness of my own land. I'm English, I was born in England, my family are all English. So in my own country, I rediscovered this. And started going on pilgrimages to cathedrals and other holy places. So that experience of a sense of connection with the land was the first really powerful connection. Then here in England, I found that by going to these holy places, I found this, again, this sense of connection or reconnection. I think one of them that moved me a lot was about 7 or 8 years ago. I have a godson who was a teenager at the time, and as his godfather, I felt I should do something for his birthday in June. And I stopped giving stuff to people, because most people have too much stuff. I give experiences. So I offered him the experience of a pilgrimage. This was just when we were starting the British Pilgrimage Trust. The first year, I asked him, I said, would you like to, for your birthday to go on a pilgrimage? The first year, we take a train to a village near Canterbury. We walk through meadows, woodlands, and orchards. We go to a holy well. We go to the shrine of St. Thomas, light candles. We go with an intention. We have a cream tea, and then we go to choral evensong and come back on the high-speed train. I said, would you like to do that? Without hesitation, he said yes. And we had the most wonderful time. And the next year, we went to Ely, walking along the River Cam. And the one I remember most, though, that is when he was 16, we went to Lincoln. And I know Lincoln Cathedral very well. My hometown in Newark-on-Trent is only 16 miles from Lincoln. I've known that cathedral all my life. It's my favorite cathedral. So I've often been there. But I hadn't actually walked there on a pilgrimage. We walked along the Lincoln Ridge, through several villages with medieval churches, over Lincoln Common, and to Lincoln Cathedral. And entering that cathedral, which for me is one of the most powerful holy places in England, as a pilgrim was a whole new experience, the sense of connection, of being part of something vastly greater than myself. And so I actually try and make the practice of, when I visit a new town or village, I try to go to the holy place at the center of it as soon as I can after arriving there, to connect with the holy center. In India, it's a temple. In Muslim countries, it's a mosque or the tomb of a Sufi saint, and I go there. But in Europe, it's usually a cathedral or a church. So I find connecting with the holy place when I go somewhere at the beginning of my journey, giving thanks for being there, asking for my time there to be blessed, giving thanks for the people who live there and who built and maintain this holy place, really connects me with the place and in a way that transforms just visiting somewhere into being a kind of pilgrimage to that place. And this is so simple, and it's free in most places. It's easy to do. It makes the visit so much more rewarding. And so I find that making visits to places, giving them a spiritual dimension, is a really important way of how I live now.
Thank you. And it's a kind of, and you talk about that rite of passage with Lucian and you know, your godson, and how that's a shift. And Mac, you know, Embakum is a kind of center of initiation and rites of passage and taking people and bringing them back into contact with, in connection with the earth. And when you've made pilgrimages, when have you felt that sort of crossing over into I suppose the dimension of spirit?
I think I cross over, I was going to say regularly, perhaps all the time, because I think it is the nature of this world. And Guy, I have to say, you know, when I looked at this title, Beyond the Ordinary, I never wish to leave the ordinary. It is because we've never seen the ordinary for what she is that we imagine there's an extraordinary. But the extraordinary is the trees and the caves and the waters and everything of beauty in this world, and indeed everything, everything. We talk of nature and we walk in nature in our land. Well, this is land robbed of wolves and bears and other things that might like to eat us. The nature and the wild is wild. And so, for me, the place that I seek is where every breath that I take, I will be singing a paean to the Spirit that is immanent in everything, not transcendent, is immanent in every tree and branch and rock and stone, drop of water, tear, smile, everything. And so, maybe it's because I'm getting older, constantly. I won't be able to do a walk like I did from where I was born to the Isle of Inismon or Mina or Mona in the winter of 2009. I won't be able to do that again.
How long was that? It was a few months or so.
It was nearly a month.
A month.
And it was traveling with no tent. Well, it was January 2009. It went down to minus 15 in the Welsh hills and had no tent and no stove and only acorns that I'd harvested and leached out the tannins and ground down and various things like that. No map, no compass, with the sun. And so it was hard, and I loved it. And I felt naked and more true of me every step I took, because it was so cold and so beautiful. And all the time I'm saying to myself, once upon a time, the people from our tribes, many of them would have walked to Mona, to the temple school of the indigenous spirituality of these islands, long before Christianity came or anything like it. We would have made that journey, and perhaps even further back we would have navigated with the sun and the stars. And a fire would have meant everything between life and death. And so now at Mbacum, I still travel some, I still do pilgrimage, but they're shorter. But I think if my life isn't an acknowledgement that life itself is a pilgrimage, if I don't understand at this stage that I was born in ceremony, into a ceremony, because that's what life is. This is a ceremony. If I don't understand that and feel that in my bones, in my very essence of my being, I will never be able to see the sparrow for who the sparrow is, or the fox for who the fox is, or the child who trusts me, that I'd be worthy of that trust. So I really do feel we were born into something extraordinary, and because it was all given to us and laid out in front of us, where we saw trees and grass, we saw birds, that we can no longer see these things. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they are. We don't know our own hearts. So perhaps when we decide we're going to go on pilgrimage, there is the chance that we will find our way home again. And the invitations are always there, but they're always there in the streets of London. They're there everywhere. And ultimately, I think it is knowing in the fullness of our being that it is a privilege to be alive on this earth for a few short years. And whatever happens after that is after that. But right now is here, with our gardens, with our children, with our work. And that is being with Spirit.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Satish, on your long pilgrimage, which many people here will have heard about before, but maybe you want to do a short précis of it, but how do you relate to this title, which could be an awful title? I now realize, I now think, what was I doing? I don't even know what it means either. But how do you relate between this concept of the ordinary and extraordinary? Yeah, and spirit as well.
It is ordinary to be a tourist, and it's extraordinary to be a pilgrim. And we can all be either a tourist or a pilgrim. So a pilgrim transforms ordinary into extraordinary just by our consciousness, our attitude, our mind. So I decided myself to be a pilgrim rather than a tourist. And all of us can have that consciousness. A tourist, a pilgrim is not a special kind of person, but every person, all of us, every person can be and is a special kind of pilgrim. So you mentioned about my pilgrimage from India. And I walked 8,000 miles and walked. So wherever I went without any money. For 2.5 years, I didn't touch any money. So I came to Muslim countries. I said, you are Muslims? I love you. Then I came to communist countries in Soviet Union. I said, you are communist? I love you. Then I came to capitalist countries in Germany, France, England, America. I said, you are capitalist? I love you. Then I went to Japan. You are Buddhist? I love you. And that made me pilgrim. I don't judge because you are Muslim or you are Christian, you are capitalist, you are communist. I don't put all those labels. I see every living being as a wonderful human being. And I love everybody. And that's being a pilgrim, is to love everybody. That when you start to criticize, a tourist criticizes. A tourist expects things. A nice hotel, a nice restaurant, a nice museum, all this. And they don't get this nice hotel, a nice museum. Whatever they get is never good enough. And so a pilgrim does not expect anything. A pilgrim accepts life as it comes and praises life. Life is beautiful. The world is beautiful. Like that song, what a wonderful world. I say to myself, what a wonderful world. And when I say, how do you do? A friend say, how do you do? They mean, I love you. That's a pilgrim. The moment you start to love every moment, every human being, whoever they are, radical love, then you are a pilgrim. So all of us can be pilgrims. So for 2.5 years, 8,000 miles, I lived without any expectation. And Muslims, Christians, capitalists, communists, blacks, whites, rich, poor. I was in the Kremlin, I was in the White House, in one of the poor villages. Everywhere, I got love. And I got appreciation. And then I walked around Britain as well for 4 months, 2,000 miles. And all the beautiful places that Rupert mentioned. I went to Lincoln, I went to Lindisfarne, I went to Iona, I went to all these beautiful sacred places. And again, in England, it's not that outside that you can get hospitality without any money. I walked for 4 months without a single penny in my pocket, and the British people everywhere, English, Scottish, Welsh, everywhere, gave me hospitality. So if you are a pilgrim, everybody loves you. If you want to be loved, be a pilgrim. That's all, very simple. And then I also made a pilgrimage to Santiago. So it's a beautiful place, and it's a lovely Camino, and you can walk there, and there's lots of places to stay, beautiful. I did a pilgrimage to Assisi. I walked from Florence to Assisi. And walking is the best way. For me, if you have 2 legs, you can go anywhere. You don't need any transport, you don't need petrol, you don't need anything, you don't need money. universe has given you, God has given you 2 legs, you can walk anywhere. I could walk in deserts, I could walk in mountains, I could walk in forests, I could walk anywhere. And so Assisi was wonderful. And then I also went to Mount Kailash. So I went to Nepal, and then from Nepal, Simikot, village called Simikot, I walked 7 days into Tibet and came to Mount Kailash. And then we walked around Mount Kailash, 4 days of circumambulation, up to 18,000 feet high, the glacier, wonderful, wonderful. And then 7 days back to Nepal. So about 18 days of all walking together. And the Mount Kailash is a wonderful place of pilgrimage. If you have not been to Mount Kailash, it's a kind of holy, sacred, all the great rivers like Ganges and Jamuna and many, many other, Brahmaputra and so on, they come from Kailash. And the Buddhists and the Jains and the Hindus, they all go to Mount Kailash. So there are lots of beautiful sacred places, but every place is sacred. And every human being is a pilgrim. So don't have to go to all these wonderful places, although you will enjoy them. And it's a great pleasure to go. But wherever you are, it's a God's gift. It's a God's earth. It's a sacred earth. A sense of the sacred is essential to be a pilgrim. Everything is sacred. Everything is beautiful. Just praise it and celebrate it and enjoy life. Life is beautiful. And so that's what makes me pilgrimage. So that's what ordinary becomes extraordinary, and you go beyond ordinary the moment your mindset is of a pilgrim.
Brilliant. Well, 3 very good answers, as one might expect. The chairman of British Pilgrimage Trust, Simon, will talk after this, and we've been working together on this survey, a YouGov survey, and I'm sort of going to blow it by saying what we discovered now because it's important for this. We asked what are the barriers to making pilgrimage of the UK adult population, and what was excellent is that 47% said they're not interested at all in pilgrimage, which actually means that over half are. That's a lot of people. So that's very exciting. But out of loads of different barriers, such as navigation, a lack of accommodation, travel, not really understanding how to do it, all these, we came up with lots of different, about 15 different options. The one that was by far the thing that put people off was religious association, which is quite interesting because we did start this whole charity with bring your own beliefs, and actually it does turn out to be the thing. And as we're talking about the spirit and beyond the ordinary, how can pilgrimage help us connect with this other dimension that religion should be helping us to connect with, if there is this big problem we have of not wanting to do it because of religious association? And all of you.
The thing is that religion should not make you narrow-minded. Religion is not a label. Religion is opening your heart. And so religion is based on spirituality. And love is spirituality. So I don't think religion should be a label that I'm a Hindu and you are a Muslim, so you are not with me. That kind of narrowness is not, Buddha did not teach narrowness. Jesus Christ did not. Jesus Christ said, love your enemy. Love your neighbor. Love whoever. They didn't say love your Christian brothers or Christian neighbor. He said love your neighbor, whoever your neighbor is. But they are Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists or communists or capitalists. They are your neighbor. So I would say, like Ukraine, I say Russians are your neighbor. Love them. And I would say Russians, Ukrainians are your neighbor. Love them. Why? I mean, the religious people in Ukraine are against Russia, or Russian Orthodox maybe against Ukraine. That's not Christianity. Christianity is to love your neighbor. So I think we can all be religious and spiritual without being narrow-minded.
Quite right.
I think the reality of the situation in England today is that most people are not religious. Surveys show the majority of the population describe themselves as having no religion. So it's not as if when people go and visit a village church on a pilgrimage that this represents an oppressive system of power. and so on. It might have possibly have done in the Middle Ages or something, but the fact is most children grow up today with no religious instruction or experience or knowledge whatever. So I think part of this is not so much that there's a huge problem with narrow-minded Christians or narrow-minded Muslims or anything guarding their sacred place and keeping other people out. On the contrary, the church attendance in Britain is about 5% of the population, and the Church of England, which has most of the holy places, is about 2%. So we're not talking of an oppressive majority that's freezing people out. We're talking about a prejudice against religion inculcated into people through Enlightenment rationalism. The whole point of Enlightenment rationalism was to do down religion. That's a thing of the past. It's all about oppression, the Inquisition, etc., dogma, etc. And what we really need is science and reason. And I was converted to this atheist cult of science and reason as a teenager and said the most damaging things I could about religion, not because I'd been abused as a child or because I'd suffered personally from this, or not because my parents had or my grandparents had, but because it was part of a propaganda system that I'd been educated into. So my prejudice, my personal experience of having gone through an atheist phase for about 10 years of prejudice against religion and anything associated with it, which would have put me off going on a pilgrimage or going into a church, was nothing to do with the actual problems of religion now. It may have been based on a historical residue from long ago. So I suspect a lot of this prejudice is not really to do with what's wrong with religion today. It's a lot to do with a doctrinal system of militant atheism, which has influenced a lot of people. And I think one of the best things about pilgrimage is that when you enter a holy place, and I've been as a pilgrim to Hindu temples, to Muslim shrines, to Christian churches, to Buddhist temples and stupas. I've been to pilgrimage and to Jain temples. All of them have felt welcoming to me. And when I've actually gone there, I've found that it's elevating, inspiring experience. So I think that for people who can actually enter holy places of whatever kind as pilgrims, it can be a healing experience against a kind of prejudice which is baked hard into our culture through the Enlightenment rationalism that affects the educational system.
I think where I stand in my life now with these things was mostly influenced in my early years. So we went to Sunday school. So I was a child of that sort of generation when that sort of thing happened. Went to Sunday school, and it didn't take me long to realize that the people who were teaching me didn't believe what they were teaching. And then the headmaster of school, who was a very staunch Christian, he's a paedophile. And then I'm with a guru from India. He loves the women, the money, and all the rest of it far more than he cares really about anything else. So then I carry on like this, and I'm confused because I have these feelings of awe and wonder and reverence. And the people that I discover with whom I feel family are indigenous people. And with indigenous people, I find that they say to me, Mac, we don't understand. Why is belief such a big thing in your world? In old dialect Lakota, we don't even have a word for belief. Belief didn't exist as a concept, as an idea, anything. And then I heard Karen Armstrong, a religious scholar, speaking on TED Global, saying that belief was only introduced into Christianity very, very late in that story. So I feel then to myself, how would it be if my religion did not involve belief? Though I never really used the word religion, it's just life. And then I feel my eyes open with awe and wonder, whatever the place. So, sacred places, where the family of rabbits live in the bramble bush and Embercombe, I think is a sacred place. Right now, a sacred act is happening because the stags are beginning to give the call and the does are coming in from all areas around Embercombe for this act of renewal that will bring the babies forward next year. What are those sacred places for me? The little stream that nobody goes to pray. And to thank that little stream for being so utterly beautiful and teaching me about water, the very same water that flows through my veins. So, I have to admit to have forgotten the original question, but I'm still enjoying myself.
We're going beyond the ordinary, so go where you like, honestly. Okay. It doesn't always matter. You know.
Well, the lovely thing is, and I'm just sitting here, we're all of an age, I think. We're getting there anyway. I think I don't even quite know.
I'm 89.
Right.
I'm older than my colleagues.
You've got all to say your ages now.
So I'm the youngster or something, 3.5 years off 80. So what is wonderful is that we don't have to agree to a text. We have eyes that see beauty, and we feel it and articulate it in our different ways. But that should be the case for every human being on this earth, that they can choose themselves how they relate. And they do not have to be, as you said, Satish, enemy to another who holds a different point of view or feels things differently. You mentioned when we were out and when we stood in circle, well, it is the only sensible way to sit around a fire if you want to share the warmth equally. And if we look, when I said we were born in ceremony, into a ceremony, lift your sight to where we actually are, and you will see a star called the sun, and you will see orbiting around it the planet Earth and Mercury and Venus and all these other planets. And then if you could see that great dance, would you not say that looks extraordinarily like a ceremony of the dancers dancing around the big fire? So it is the freedom to choose and follow your heart and feel what you feel and know that someone else can feel something differently, and that is okay, because we are part of a family, and that family depends upon, is interdependent completely. So my dog, Ted, or Teddy, I don't think he thinks about religion very much, but he embodies love. He is so, that's what he does. My little child, my 8-year-old, I have an 8-year-old, has decided that he would like a Bible, So I'll get him a Bible, And later he may decide he's something else, and then he can do that. But what he must know is that he's loved and has a place, and that it is not my role to tell him what he must think or believe or anything, only that he should find himself to the strength that he can then in his own embodied way meet these questions.
Yeah. Well, to go, I think I'm just thinking what do I think? I love the Church of England. I love the church. I love Christianity, but I also find it extremely annoying. More than annoying, I get sort of angry at their lack of innovation and their ability to try new things and move. Although there are shifts, and there is a shift going on, and inside me I can feel this tension between the two. So I spend so much of my time promoting churches and going to churches, but another part of me is like, they're not even really listening sometimes. And so there's this interesting thing going on, and I think there are issues there about attitudes towards women, attitudes towards homosexuality, and that they're not necessarily, these are PR, or so these are how things are perceived. They may not actually be true, and a lot of what I'm saying may be my own perception. It may not actually be true, but the fact is those perceptions are really strong. And I suppose what I was asking, that I really would love to explore further, is how does pilgrimage itself offer a way through this issue? Because the issue's definitely there. We know it's there. We just found out that that's the main reason that people don't want to engage with it. But is it to do with the autonomy that you have as a pilgrim? If you go into a holy place, you can do whatever you like, really. No one's telling you what to do. There's no mediation. Is that what's at the heart of why people feel there's a rise in pilgrimage, or is it something else? Is it the connection between the body, the mind, the heart, the community, nature itself, the cosmos? I'd love to know what you think it is about pilgrimage that helps us through this.
I mean, pilgrimage helps us to be humble. And pilgrimage helps us to not only believe, as you mentioned, believe, but practice. You can believe in the Bible, you can believe in God, you can believe in love, but if you don't practice love and you don't practice teachings of Jesus Christ, then label is okay that you might call yourself Christian or Buddhist or Hindu, but it's not without practice. So for me, I can go to church and practice love, and I can go to mosque and practice love, and I can go to temple, I can go to mountains, I went to Iona, I went to Lindisfarne, I went to Mount Kailash. All places, you have to go ordinary, and you go beyond the ordinary. And the building is ordinary. But when you see the spirit there, the sense of the sacred there, that's beyond ordinary. So I think it's the practice. We have to put our focus on practicing. That is spirituality, not just believing, not just ritual going to a mosque or temple. That's practicing what teachings of Jesus, teachings of Buddha, teachings of Mahavir, teachings of any Mahatma Gandhi. Without practicing, we cannot go beyond ordinary. And practicing, Zen Buddhists, they practice flower arrangement. They practice tea ceremony. Serving tea is a spiritual practice. How you do with love and with respect and with attention and with presence. Making tea is a religious practice in Zen tradition. Even archery, they practice as a spiritual practice. So for me, it's not believing something only. Believing is good, but practicing is the key to being a pilgrim. Pilgrimage is a practice to be a pilgrim. That's what I have learned in my life, that I practice. What do you think?
Well, I quite agree, Satish. I think the point is it's about experience.
Yes.
And I think we're all very confused because of this emphasis on belief. And you see, I think that one of the problems with Christian churches is that there's been an emphasis on belief, which is actually not really what it's about for most practicing Christians. It's more about the practices, singing together, community, the liturgical year, holy places, the beauty of cathedrals and that sort of thing.
Charity as well.
Charity, helping others, and charity, service to others. All these things are practices. And if you actually ask, I've occasionally asked people in churches I go to how they understand the creed. And there's a widely different set of views. And a friend of mine who was a country priest for years said that in his parish, in his country parishes, there were people in his congregation who represented almost every known heresy. But, they just didn't talk about it. It wasn't so important. It was a matter of singing together, being together. And I think part of this problem, you see, is that we actually do live under the domination of a very strong belief system, namely mechanistic materialism, which is the official belief system of our culture. It's the default belief system, the idea the universe has evolved for no reason whatever. Matter is totally unconscious. There's no consciousness out there in stars, galaxies, or other planets. The only consciousness in the universe is confined to the inside of human heads, and maybe those of a few other animals. It's all evolved purely for utilitarian reasons of natural selection. The reason that plants form beautiful flowers is because it helps them get fertilized by spreading their pollen and seed, because insects find the flowers attractive. Doesn't explain why they find them attractive, So this belief system that it's all, and when you die it just goes blank, that's the end of it. This materialist belief system is taught in all our schools to all our children, even today. You know, even in primary schools, this is the world view that's put across. Educated people adopt this point of view because it proves they're educated. And anyone who has religious practices, beliefs, or psychic experiences and stuff, for the hardcore believers in materialism, all those things are nothing but superstition. And so I myself believe that the sciences have become much too narrow and dogmatic. And although many people in the sciences say, well, this is all about freedom of thought, free inquiry, as opposed to religion, which is all about dogma, my own experience is the exact opposite. The minute I go into a science institution and talk about the kind of things I do research on, morphic resonance, telepathy, the sense of being stared at, precognitive dreams, etc., these things are deeply heretical within the scientific world. Most universities, you can't study them, talk about them, or do research on them. They're not funded by any official funding agencies. Alternative medicine falls under the same taboos. This is all to do with an extremely dogmatic belief system. That belief system says that all religious belief and most spiritual practices are simply a waste of time, fantasy, superstition, etc. And so belief plays a very, very important part in our culture. But I think it's a dogmatic belief system which is actually very limiting in its effects on us, because it says we are the me, the conscious me is nothing but the activity of my brain. The activity of my brain is entirely dependent on physical and chemical processes in it. I have no free will. If I believe I've got free will, it's an illusion. If I think there are God or angels or saints or spirits out there, that's just because I've been indoctrinated. They're nothing but changes inside our brains, and our brain makes us believe them. So we have this, that is the dominant system of educated people. When I was a fellow of Clare College, Cambridge, out of the 45 fellows, I would say about 40 of them were completely committed materialists. There was one tortured Roman Catholic, there was one Jew who was a practicing Jew, and there were the dean and chaplain whose job it was to be the dean and chaplain. But practically everybody else was an atheist or an agnostic. It was just taken for granted. The entire system was based on that assumption. So I think that the belief is actually, the strength of belief is not so much in our culture found as the dominant dogmatic theme of religions. I think that we've got into a system where the belief has been enormously overemphasized. So if the atheist approach to religion is, prove it, where's the evidence? Well, the evidence is actually consciousness and the experience of consciousness and our own experiences. But there's no place for consciousness in science because it only depends on measurable changes in the brain, which don't tell you anything about it. Now it's opening up a bit. Consciousness studies are now starting to look at near-death experiences, psychedelics experiences, visionary experiences, lucid dreams, and so forth. And as they do so, we come to realize that consciousness is vastly more than anything we've been taught about in physiology textbooks. But consciousness is nowhere in the laws of physics, is nowhere in the laws of chemistry. And those who want to explain everything in terms of physics and chemistry have to remove consciousness entirely. And since the whole spiritual realm is about consciousness, then this means that it is a severe limitation on our thinking. And then those who are militantly materialist project the idea that everyone else has beliefs, but they simply know the truth. And so I think what we have to see is there is a very strong belief system at work in our culture which has affected all of us. And it's one which I try to show in some of my books, especially The Science Delusion, is not really scientific at all. It's just a set of assumptions and beliefs which have become hardened into dogmas.
Now, science has to be in harmony with spirituality. Science by itself is not good enough. And we had a Schumacher College just last week. We had somebody called Ian McGilchrist, and he has a book called The Master and His Emissary. And he's saying that our scientific study, education, as you have talked about rightly, education is only emphasizing the left hemisphere of the brain. Our body is made of two aspects always. Two hands, but you don't cook with one hand. Two legs, you don't walk with one leg. We have two brains, Ian McGilchrist says. He's a neurologist, and he says that left brain is more quantitative and measurement, and maybe more logical, maybe more administrative, maybe more managerial. And the right brain is more kind of spiritual, imaginative, creative, consciousness, and all that. So in our education, we are spending billions and billions and billions of pounds in big, big universities like your university, Cambridge, and Oxford, and Harvard, and Yale, and Exeter, and everywhere. That's only training the left brain. And so this is why we started Schumacher College. We said we should have an educational head and both hemisphere of the head, and a heart, courage, compassion, kindness, generosity. These should be learned. We can learn to love. We can learn to be kind. We can learn to be courageous. At the moment, we are being educated to be fearful, always cautious, always fearful. There's no courage. There's no education of heart and no education of hands. Our university students, they don't do anything. Your Cambridge University has thousands of acres of land, but no student goes to any land, or no lecturer or professor goes to any land. They just sit in front of a computer and or blackboard in the past, and just books, library. I think our education is totally out of date. All our universities and Oxford and Cambridge should be closed down tomorrow. They are completely part of the problem. They are not part of the solution. They are part of the problem. And therefore, I would say that we should have a small learning centers where education of head, both hemispheres of the head, you need quantity, but you also need quality. You need matter, but you also need spirit. Without spirit, matter is dead. And without matter, spirit cannot be used. So our body is spiritual and material at the same time. So I think we need to change our educational system. And our children are being brainwashed into become materialist and a quantitative. No quality, no beauty, no spirit, only matter and measurement and quantity. And no meaning, no purpose, no spirit. I think our education is a part of the problem. If you want to find a solution, you have to close down all the universities. Start again.
There we go. That's the conclusion. Well, we've got sort of, and we technically got 10 minutes, but actually you're going, it's half past, so hopefully we've got a bit of time for questions. But I just, because Mac hasn't spoken on this yet, and Rupert's opened up to the consciousness that going beyond the ordinary. If you replace ordinary for materialistic thinking, and then it's sort of going to the consciousness. But something that you've mentioned a few times, Mac, that's actually moved me on stage, is when you start speaking about the heart and opening the heart and exploring the heart. People talk about this all the time, but can you talk about what you are actually meaning when you say opening up your heart and going into the heart? And well, being with pilgrimage, one of the definitions is walking towards an unknown destination with a true heart. So heart is at the heart of it.
Yes, I think it is. But like everything else, of course, it's all of us. It's heart and head, it's body. So with heart, I just feel like we've gone such a long, long, long way away from our hearts that it becomes quite abstract, really. So a practice, I wasn't sure if you're going to ask about this later, Guy, but a practice that I do, for instance, every night.
Yeah, actually just practices is the way forward, yeah.
I go into my child's bedroom and I just look at him for a moment, this beautiful little sleeping child, and my heart opens. I walk round and I get into bed, and my wife, and she might be asleep or something, I reach out and I touch her. My heart opens. I go downstairs in the morning, and Teddy gets up and comes over to me and Smudge, the cat, my heart opens. I make my wife a drink with lemon and lemon water, and I take it up to her, and my heart opens. I can't, all I know is for me, I have always loved the animal of my body. I've loved the sort of fierce end of wild and living. But I am so much more than that or other than that. I wish during this life to learn how to love really deeply and profoundly, and I guess I'm some way along that path. So heart is crucial. But heart, when we pilgrimage, it feels to me, why does pilgrimage, I tend to use the word journey, but why does it work? Because we move in rhythm. And it's like we hear the drum again. And our feet are going boom, 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 boom. We used to do this. This was called ceremony. We used to do this. And when we dance, why do we feel that way? When we dance long enough, simple step, we just do it again. What is it about trance? The stick that you carry goes tap and tap and tap. And if you travel over days and you see the moon travel across the sky again and again, you see the sun rise and set and rise and set. You sleep and you wake, you sleep and you wake, you dream. For me, this is so hardly surprising. I would say that at some point we begin, somebody mentioned embodied, we feel it in our bodies, we feel it in our hearts, we feel it flooding all the way through us, and we are open to transformation of some kind. Not necessarily that happens, but the doorways open. We walk past hawthorn, we walk past nettle, we walk past cleaver. All the birds and animals and the song, of life itself speaking to us. Everything reaches out trying to touch, and we are more open than we might normally be, so we have experiences. And I think it's probably very good for us.
Thank you. Thank you. You've really answered how to talk about the heart. You talk about the practices that open it. Thank you. That's really special. Well, let's open to the floor and to the pilgrim band in front of us. Your hand up went first. Whatever that sentence is supposed to be. Do we have another microphone? Maybe not.
Hi. I asked a question at the start of the day. I asked, do we create the destination? And I wanted to bring that question back up again and hear your answers to that.
Satish wrote a book called No Destination.
Yes, destination is here and now. This is the moment. Future has not come. Past is gone. We don't know. We don't remember the past. Only few things remember. And we can't decide what will be the future. But every present moment is the destination. So I think live in this moment. Make this moment beautiful. At this moment, you can write a poem. At this moment, you can sing a song. This moment, you can make love. This moment, you can give a gift to somebody. At this moment, you can do what you want. So there's no destination tomorrow or later in life. Every day is a destination. Every day is a beautiful day. So I live, people ask me, what is the secret of your long life? You are 89 and still you have so much energy. I say, I live in the present moment. That's the secret of my life. So I think destination, this is why I wrote a book called No Destination. Live in the present moment.
Well, I think that the present moment's always open potentially to the world of the spirit, to the feeling that we're part of a consciousness and a reality much greater than ourselves. But it's much easier to feel that in some places than others. I mean, I find it much easier to feel it in, say, Ely Cathedral than in a Tesco supermarket. Potentially, I mean, Satish wouldn't have a problem, but I personally find that some places are it's much more accessible, partly because they're places that were built with the intention of opening our mind and our consciousness to a connection with that which is beyond ourselves. All holy places are places where heaven and earth are linked, where the transcendent and the immanent come together, and where and being in that place where other people have also felt a sense of opening by, in my own theory of morphic resonance, by a kind of memory in the place, it's easier to feel that connection. So I have a somewhat conventional view of pilgrimage, that it does involve destinations. For Muslims, it would Mecca; for Jewish people, Jerusalem; for Buddhists, Bodh Gaya; for Christians, any of the many holy places. There are actual destinations, and when I go on a pilgrimage, I do have an actual destination. But I agree with Satish.
The destination, you have to take every step. And that is the real pilgrimage.
Oh, yes.
Pilgrimage is not when you arrive in Bodh Gaya. Pilgrimage is every step.
Oh, I agree. So every step along the way. But the point is that it's very different for me, going to a pilgrimage with an intention and a destination than just going for a walk, which has every step as well. But I think the intention of a pilgrimage frames the journey and gives it this other dimension, which a mere stroll. Well, I love strolls. I go for strolls on Hampstead Heath practically every day. So I'm not against strolls, but it's different from a pilgrimage.
But going beyond the ordinary is to transform that stroll into pilgrimage.
Yes.
I'm not usually speaking up for Tesco's, but on this occasion I do wish to speak about Sainsbury's, and I hadn't, So I think the answer to the question is both, and it's optional. I was in Sainsbury's a number of years ago. My small child is 4, and we're in there, and it's time there's not many people there. And I'm with him, and there's this row of people, still the majority were checking out rather than machines. And I said to him, which checkout would you like to go to, Kai? So he looks along the checkouts, and he selects this particular woman. And we walk towards her with her shopping. And I'm wondering to myself, is this completely random, or is there something? I don't know. And I look at the woman who we're walking towards, and there is nothing, as it were, special or unusual or anything like that about her. She's just a woman, and she's 55, maybe 60 years old. And I probably would not remember that face. We approach her and we start to unload the shopping. And a cascade of loveliness, of generosity, of kindness, of curiosity, of humanity just pours from this human being onto myself and my little boy. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, my goodness, I think we're being blessed. This feels like a blessing. She is so gorgeously wonderful in her ordinariness as a deep, fine human being. And it happens, we're laughing, she's just joyful, everybody's happy. We move away from our shopping. I turn round and I look behind, and she's doing exactly the same thing with the next person. It wasn't anything that we were special, it's just how she is. So this for me is very important, because that's why I would say in all the ordinary moments of life, I need to remember that sacredness and awe and wonder are immediately present all the time if I'm attentive. At the same time, I chose on that journey I referred to go from where I was born with profound gratitude for that privilege to the island that was once the center of our indigenous spiritual tradition, to say we may have been laid down, but we're rising again. And there on that island, I stood by the seashore, and I looked out across that sea, and I made my prayers, as it were. In that example, it was important to me to go to that place and to say to that island, well, firstly, thank you, because it was on that island I received all these kind of extraordinary experiences that showed the way to the work that I later did. At the same time, I'll probably go to Sainsbury's as well, and who knows what might happen.
One more question, I think, maybe two, depending on how long you can all stay, but I don't know. It's a very hard question to answer collectively. Okay, Dad, you actually got a, oh yeah, okay, you've been working hard today. Yeah.
Thank you. I wrote some stuff down, so I just wanted to first thank you for speaking for the hearts to understand, not for the minds. I had a beautiful conversation earlier, the kind that puts you to your knees, and this just echoes that, and I wanted to extend. And my question really is just pouring more wisdom that you've been sharing, and that is the notion of risk. The risk to practice in presence, the risk to love fully and radically, the risk to enter into wholeness, but the risk that it takes to annihilate the self as well. The risk of walking the path of non-dogma and betraying the materialist, mechanistic culture. And I also wanted to point out that in Arabic, risk means sustenance. Sustenance. It's phonetically the same, spelled differently, but it means sustenance. And Sufis tie this to tawakkul, which is trust. That I just wanted to hear if you could speak to risk.
To live is to risk. And I think we should not fear risk. Fear is not the right approach for me. So when you go on a pilgrimage, I went around the world on pilgrimage without any money. I didn't know any day, I did not know where I'm going to stay, whether I'll get any food, what will happen. But I just trusted. So if you trust yourself, if you trust the world, you trust God, you trust the universe, trust is the great power in my mind. And that's what helped me to go around the world. That's what helped me to go around Britain. Risk is part of living. So I don't fear risk. As risk is good. Problems are good. I welcome problems. I welcome difficulties. I welcome obstacles. Only then I'm challenged to use my creativity, use my imagination, use my love to solve the problems, solve the difficulties. So I don't fear problems. I don't fear obstacles. I don't fear risk. To live is to risk. Take risk. Be adventurous. Be fearless.
Well, I agree with Satish. I think to live is to risk. I mean, the things we do in our lives, getting married is a risk. Having children is a risk. And many people in this room have taken those risks. And, you know, it can go horribly wrong, as we all know. Often it goes wonderfully right, but it's a risk. I think, though, that our modern world, which is designed to reduce risk with health and safety regulations everywhere, I mean, when I lived in India, there was no health and safety. Everyone had to look after themselves or after their families. But now we have health and safety regulations. I took a group of children from our parish church on a pilgrimage this summer to St. Albans Cathedral. And I was astonished that to take these children with lots of parents and other people, we had to fill in risk assessment forms, about 4 pages of checking boxes. Was there a risk of rabies? Was there a risk of, all sorts of things. It was just absurd. But I think that the excessive fear of risk here, which is really a fear of litigation and being blamed, has led to what I think was almost a pathological growth of risk in the form of things like dangerous sports. There are some people who feel that they need to have a very excessive level of risk through dangerous sports. In a sense, a lot of sports are dangerous. Downhill skiing is dangerous. There are a lot of people. Hang gliding is dangerous. Base jumping is dangerous. But the most extreme things are like free diving or free tightrope walking, where people walk with a 1,000-foot drop on a free line with no safety harness. The reason people do that, or drive motorbikes incredibly fast, the reason people do these dangerous sports is because it brings them into the present. And in my book, Ways to Go Beyond, I have a chapter on sports as spiritual practices. And these extreme risk sports, I talk to people who do them, and the reason they do them is because it's so dangerous, the slightest lack of attention, you'd be dead. And so they therefore they have to be completely present. And it's a way of becoming completely present, which they experience as a spiritual experience. So I think, risk has many dimensions, but it's particularly interesting that in our society, people have taken it up in a way that they deliberately cultivate risk. In the past, there were so many opportunities for risk in real life, and indeed in fighting wars and things, that you didn't actually need artificially to adopt a risky sport. But dangerous sports are a big phenomenon of our modern world.
I think, yes, to live is the risk. Yeah. And I do feel, of all the various things that we could risk, to love someone is a huge risk, because you will have to say goodbye one day. One way it has to happen. They leave you, they die, you leave. One way or another, there will be tears. And so I feel that always invites us to feel. To feel is to risk. And there is no guarantee attached to it. So that's life. And in these experiences, we grow. My terror was to speak in public. Absolute terror. When those indigenous people said, "You love our Mother Earth, you need to speak on her behalf." And I laughed because I thought, thank goodness for that, I can get out of this. I said, no, I'm really sorry, that's one thing I can't do. And they said, no, you don't understand, it's not a request. If you wish to learn from us, you go speak on behalf of Mother Earth. And so I thought, I said, I don't think you understand. If I stood on the stage and they were like this, and there were people and I began to speak, I would probably just burst into tears. And they still weren't moving. I said, and carry on crying for the next 40 minutes. And they're all looking at me, nodding and smiling, and said, that would be amazing. Matt McCartney, on behalf of our Earth, just weeps continuously for 40 minutes and then walks off the stage to thunderous applause. And at that point I thought, okay, I give in. Because we have to risk if we're going to follow our heart and live in a way with awe and reverence and love of life.
Should we take a risk of singing a song?
Oh, yes.
Everybody
okay.
stand up.
Okay.
I'll repeat one line and then you repeat after me. I walk in beauty before me. I walk in beauty before me. Put your hand out. I walk in beauty before me. I walk in beauty before me. I walk in beauty behind me. I walk in beauty behind me. I walk in beauty above me. I walk in beauty above me. I I walk in beauty below me.
I walk in beauty below me.
I walk in beauty all around me.
I walk in beauty all around me.
The whole world is beautiful.
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 Ho! 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 Thank you.
Satish has to go, but thank you all. Thank you so much. Really heartfelt, and what a wonderful way to finish.
Don't stop your journey here. Unlock more potential with this recommended content.